nerds, this is Cena Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me as always is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Welcome back after the Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, we got it's December,
Yes, happy December.
the marathon month.
Yeah, for sure.
The last wave, the closeout, the ending.
Yep.
Man, it's gonna it's always interesting. There's like a weird quiet. And
Hmm.
then there's a bunch of like, there's a spike in activity, and then the closeout. I mean, your birthday at the end of the month,
Yep.
um, breaking further into the the next 50.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, it's just like, when I hit 50 11 months ago, it was just like, okay, cool. It is, yeah. I mean, I haven't broken down yet, so I'm good. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I so I took a week off of work too. So I was in home staycation mode all
Yeah, yeah.
week. And you would think, knowing me and my history, that I would have binged like 5 or 6 different shows.
Hmm.
And I was surprised. I did not. I did not
Huh,
binge a single show. I
interesting.
um I had an activity to do just about every day. I spaced stuff out. And then
Nice.
it was a lot of online shopping, which
Hmm.
I got all of my shopping for the holidays done.
Good for you. I've got to get started. Even though I have gotten, I got, well, I have gotten started, but I got some more to do, and I missed out on all the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Small Business Saturday sales. But at this point, retailers want the business. So there's going to be sales all throughout the holiday season. So I'm not worried.
Oh, absolutely. But I also got started and finished because they don't start them on Black Friday.
Hmm.
Plenty of websites start them like the Sunday or the
Oh yeah.
Friday before Black Friday. So I was looking at those. Um, and that's not really something I can do to have a new show in the background. Like I want to pay
Hmm.
attention. But I do want to tell you about
Yeah.
2 new things that I watched.
Okay.
And they were both K-dramas on
Ah.
Netflix. And so the first one, which is titled When the Phone Rings,
Hmm.
I think. um, it literally it dropped one episode the Friday before Thanksgiving, and then another episode Saturday. Um, the following that Saturday, like it's doing
Yeah.
a 2 episode
Huh.
drop a
Huh.
week,
Okay.
and I think there's 12 or 16 episodes in total. Um, I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed, and I was intrigued by
Okay.
not just the first episode, but specifically the second episode.
What's the
Because, oh, I'll get to the premise. You know me, I'll get to it. It's a
Okay.
slow burn.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
slow burn. But this wasn't on my radar.
Mhm.
The premise is very, I'm gonna look it up on IMDb because I love their descriptions of things so much.
Okay.
But I I like randomly just saw it and I was like, I'll try it. Um, I literally typed in who and not when. Okay, so Baek Sok-un, a former presidential spokesman, marries Hung Hui-ju, a
Mhm.
mute newspaper Harris, in an arranged union.
Huh.
When Hugh-ju is kidnapped, their distant relationship is challenged as they navigate the crisis.
Huh.
This, this, think of an iceberg, okay?
Okay.
This just is like the first episode.
Wow.
And you're like, well, I mean, how do they stretch that not only over like 2 episodes, but over 16?
Yeah.
I am shocked by all the different directions in terms of mystery
Hmm.
because they they do a very good job about giving you nuggets of backstories,
Okay.
like why was it an arranged marriage?
Huh.
Like, and
Hmm.
and who arranged it? And why did they arrange the marriage?
Okay.
And how long have these two known each other? And where did the sister who was supposed to marry the guy go? And why is she coming back? Also, why is Huiju mute? Which they get into like in episode 3, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense, but I still got a few more questions. So I mean, the one negative thing that I'm just gonna put this out there,
Yeah.
and I've watched enough K-dramas. There's hardly any budget around these things.
Hmm.
But this is on par, and I've watched a few Japanese and Chinese dramas too. This is on par with the low budget of a Chinese drama.
Oh, okay.
Where I'm like, yeah, this is weird. This feels this, you didn't give him any money to do this.
I guess they're just chucking and churning those things out now. It's just like, because they're like, we have an international market that people will watch whatever.
I have no idea because earlier this year when we were watching A Killer Paradox,
Yeah.
there was some money behind that, especially
Yeah.
the first few episodes in terms of
Yeah.
the visuals and the cinematography. But I guess it depends. Squid Games has some money behind it for sure.
Yeah.
And Squid Games too will too. But so this was just a pleasant surprise, and it was so funny because when the second episode ended, I was like, this is why I hate watching K-dramas when they first come out. Because if I'm into it, I want to binge, and when I don't, and now I have to wait.
Gotta
And
wait
it's
a week.
so
Yeah.
annoying.
Netflix has adjusted their model, so now you gotta wait.
Oh, or have they?
Yeah.
Because the second show I've been anticipating,
Hmm.
because the second show K-drama I watched on Netflix, or I started, was The Trunk. And I say I don't know if they've changed their model, because I was surprised to find out that The Trunk released their full season, 8 episodes all at once.
Huh, okay.
Now I surprisingly have only watched 2 of the 8. Because this show reminds me a lot of The Frog.
Oh yeah.
So
Tell me about that. Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting premise, which I'll get to in a second, but very slow. Very slow. Not as much back and forth. I mean, surprisingly, the other show I was just talking about, one of the characters is mute, but there's still a lot of conversation happening. There's movement, there's activity. This show had the first episode, I was gonna bail. And I still am on the fence about this, and that's why I've only watched 2 of the 8.
Okay.
But I still, part of me is like, okay, well, I still want to know what happens, because the premise is a secret marriage service is uncovered when a trunk washes up on the shore, revealing the strange marriage between a couple in the thick of it all. And essentially, what they also allude to with the discovery of this trunk is that the person from this marriage service who's just married this guy because it's the business, is killed. But I don't know. Like, we just see a trunk. And then now there's also some confusion about, well, is it her trunk or is it his ex-wife's trunk? His ex-wife, who happened to arrange this marriage. So there's a lot of like, what is happening? Why are you doing this? And so can we move a bit faster?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm still on the fence. It's not moving as quickly as I would want it to, but at the same time, I I'll probably end up hate watching it, and just because I need to understand and know. I've already invested 2+ hours into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna like rush back. I'll probably watch the next 2 episodes over the next weekend and just take
Okay,
my time with it. But
cool.
yeah, so that was my viewing experience. Um
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, other than the shows we're talking about tonight, didn't really wasn't able to catch any shows. I had a house full of folks. I did rewatch Andor with my nephew-in-law. It was his first time watching it, and it holds up very, very well. Actually, it's just like maybe more. More excited for the upcoming season, with Andor returning. But I did start this new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew, last night, since they bumped it up release date a day early. So it was it was fun. It was a fun show. I will say though, when it first started, I was kind of like, oh, I felt like I was back in the Force Awakens again, where I just felt like they just did a carbon copy. And spoilers ahead, I'm just gonna go ahead and say spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched it yet, don't listen to my comments, because I am going to get into spoilers with the show. Um, but yeah, so when it starts out, it literally is beat for beat the beginning of A New Hope. The only difference is it's on a pirate ship, but like all the the pirates are like boarding a freighter, and so just plug in the pirates for the stormtroopers in A New Hope, and rebels for the people on the freighter, and everything else about the opening was pretty much A New Hope. And I was just like, I have a bad feeling about this. But as it progressed, and once we got past that opening, and we get to the planet, yes, it is for certain. It is a show for all ages. Yes, it primarily is for kids. So, Sarah, I don't know if you will like it, given where your headspace is about Star Wars right now.
mhm.
Um, but but it does. It's in all the things you've heard people say about Goonies and E.T. and the Amblin Spielberg films and all that, and Treasure Island. All those influences are there. John Watts definitely, as who's the director and writer of the first episode. Then he also did the Spider-Man trilogy in the MCU and Sony. All those elements are there. I mean, it is, but it also, as the show progressed, there were like elements that did take me back to my childhood, as far as just with the kids in the show, and the playing with the action figures, and it was a very like mix of a very grounded world, where with these kids in the suburbs. So there are elements there that did like bring back that old school sense of wonder and excitement in Star Wars, that and nostalgia was there, but it was in a good way. So I felt like that worked for me, at least as far as a viewer. Um, but yeah, but the other pieces of it, they're either the lead kid, he's the latchkey kid, essentially. His dad's, you do have the adults in the show are pretty much just like the adults used to have in those like old 80s movies, where you had the harried parents, or the very busy parents that's always working. Like, when his dad is always like, work, 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 but do your homework. And Neil's the cute kid that everybody's been like, all social media, he's like the new Baby Yoda, honestly, as far as the characters. But they do find, Wynn does think he finds like thought he found a Jedi temple, but actually it really is. It turns out that he's found a ship, and there are two other characters, two young ladies, two girls, and they all, and the four kids are all archetypes of like kids you would expect to find, as far as middle school, early
Mhm.
like age kind of kids. Um, And and they end up discovering that they end up finding a ship, and they end up leaving their planet. And it's another show that, for me as a Star Trek fan, as soon as the ship started taking off and stuff, and they started to go on this grand adventure, I immediately thought about Star Trek Prodigy, because I'm like, okay, this is pretty much Star Trek Prodigy as far as the kids finding a starship and going out into the universe and finding things. But so there are a lot of influences and stuff, but overall, they do go to in the second episode, they end up on a pirate planet, and adventures happen there. Fun thing, and at the end of the second episode, Jude Law's character, who we are first introduced in the first few minutes of the first episode, we see him again, and he helps. And the pirates have put the kids into a prison cell, and of course, Jude Law's character is force sensitive, so he's able to use the force to get the skeleton key to be able to break out of prison, and episode ends. But overall, I mean, it has promise. As I said, it really hits some of those old school vibes and feels. It was entertaining, good start, and and it's actually nice to see social media, Star Wars fandom not yelling at each other. So it's at least the discourse around the show has been very positive so far. So thought it was a good start, but I will be joining our friends over at A Plus to talk about the series. So if you want to hear more thoughts about it, go check support both our shows, and I'll be over there, and Adam and I will be talking about it with some other folks as well. A Plus Hero Report live tomorrow night. So, but those are my initial thoughts to Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw some things. I was like, yep, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I don't think I could probably turn it on and put it on the background. But could I actually have some intelligent and engaging conversation about? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun little show. I mean, it is. Well, but I as soon as I was watching it, I was like, yeah, Sarah's making the right call here. Maybe be one of those things that you can just watch on your own time. But maybe not podcast about.
Yep, and that brings us to Superman and Lois, which did wrap up its series the other night, which concluded the entire CW DC series of television that has been occurring for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Of course, it took me until now just to realize it started with Superman and we're ending it with Superman.
Yep.
But technically, because of what Smallville always talked about, we started with Clark and we're ending with Superman.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Hello.
Yeah.
And we made a call, and instead of just talking about the next two episodes, we doubled up, and we have both watched the episodes 5 through 8.
Yeah.
So how do you want to do this? Will you just want to do highlights, or?
Yeah, let's do highlights, because I mean, one of the things that I'm actually glad we made the call, because one of the, I guess as far as I didn't binge any new shows and stuff, but I did binge this series. I did, I guess, watch these episodes the first part of Thanksgiving week. So I did binge it, and actually, I'm glad we actually decided to go this route.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, there are a lot of good things that happen in these episodes, but there are also a lot of, like, I think back to like some storylines with some of the characters, like Kyle and Chrissy, for example, that was kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
we probably wouldn't spend much time on them anyway, even if we did a two episode per week thing. But I will say that for folks who may have like us, put their energies on Penguin and Agatha and other shows, and now just getting to Superman and Lois, this show actually does lend itself to binging. I will say that, and I'm glad we made the call to go this route. So, but overall, I mean, I thought the block of episodes that we did watch, and again, this is the Superman and Lois version of Death of Superman. When we start with episode 5 with getting the flashback with Lex and opening up with his ex-wife, well, then soon to be ex-wife, and the relationship with his daughter Elizabeth, and we get more details as far as what happened there, and in the custody battle, and how they ended up being, where she ended up being taken away, and also the estrangement, for with what happened with because of the divorce and other things. So I thought that episode 5 was one of the stronger episodes of the 4 that we watched.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I spaced it out. I watched pretty much one episode a day last week, and then I wrapped it up on Sunday with the 4th episode. So, but I did watch this 5th episode, Break the Cycle, and immediately was like, oh, I could probably watch the next one. And then I started, and I was like, no, I'm gonna wait.
I did that too. I did 1 episode a day. Yeah.
I just want to space it out. That's not a binge. You liar.
Well, it is a binge. I mean, there's different definitions of binges. There's binges. There's binges of. I mean, there's like the people who sit on their ass and like watch something all day. I can't do that, but there are binges that you can binge an episode in a week too, day to day. Let us know, listeners. Tell us what your definition of a binge is.
Okay. Please, and also, I don't appreciate how you call me out like that. Yeah, it's a lot of effort to sit there and watch an entire thing, like not a movie, but a television show.
I wasn't calling you out.
And I've done that multiple times.
I've done it too. I'm telling all that. Yeah. In full disclosure, the Bear season 2. Okay, so.
Hey. Sad thing is I've binged multiple times. Like a true binge, not a will binge. That's what I'm gonna call it. That's a will binge to space it out. And I mainly, I think this episode worked so well because of Lex and how interesting he is, and we get more of his backstory, as you were talking about. I also liked how it took Lois, who ends up figuring out how to remove Doomsday from the board, and in a very Lois Lane manner, which I appreciated. But you're right. Like overall, there's some strengths. And including the next episode, because I really liked When the Light Comes On as well, which we get more of a conclusion about what they've started with Elizabeth and Lex as they finally encounter each other, because Lois needs her to convince her dad to stop and leave the Kents alone. And I can appreciate the attempt to be like, or not the attempt, but how they made it very clear that they gave Lex exactly what he wanted, in the sense of a reunion with his daughter, a potential relationship, a future. And then it was him who decided. And so that allows the villain to, like, you really see and understand their motivations, from the sense of like, well, you can't claim like your self-justification now, even the viewers can see through. And so these 4 episodes overall, if you're just following Lex and really focused on him, it's really his evolution from the Lex fresh out of prison to the Lex we know from the stories before. And I mean, they do everything. And by the end of it, he has multiple suits. He has 2 very nice suits. And I can appreciate it. The one thing about the Lex storyline that's not really needed and kind of weird, and I'm like, what, why do we need this? Is this weird will they, won't they between him and Amanda?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, is this necessary? I don't think so, but whatever. I mean, and it's funny when you brought up Chrissy and what's his name?
Cal?
Kyle. Chrissy and Kyle. So when Lana and Kyle got divorced,
Mhm.
was there something that occurred in the writer's room where it was like these two characters can never be in the same episode for the final season? Because I swear in like season 3, they were constantly in the same episode, but now I feel like they tag in, tag out, tag in, tag out.
It's the cut budget.
Yeah, yeah, it's just this funny thing. I mean, that on top of it only took me a few episodes to suddenly be like, I'm pretty sure they had 2 daughters, but we
Yeah,
never see their
yeah.
daughter at
They
all.
did mention the one daughter in one of the
Mention one
episodes, but
thing.
again, yeah, she did show up in the 4th episode with the Runaway Bride episode, but
Oh,
yeah,
I
but for
I
like a
guess
hot minute, if you blink, you missed her.
I blinked because I completely missed her.
Yeah,
And I find it so funny because there was an episode a while back in a previous season that was centered around her. And I'm like, who are you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's what about the twins? Because they
Mhm.
go through some um growing pains in the sense of not of just Jordan is going back to normal,
Mhm.
and Jonathan is pushing himself as far as he can and being golden boy.
Yeah,
And and I can appreciate how, yeah, we've come full circle with these two, yet when they're on each other's side, like team and working together and getting out of situations together, it really is nice
yeah.
and
It
it's
is.
fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah. Like the whole like I think back with with, for example, Jordan trying to explain to Candace because Jonathan now is having to Lois is using him
Yep.
to fill in for Clark because obviously now that Clark's powers are starting to wane and we learn why, further information about why his powers are starting to wane in this block of episodes. But but to your point, the brother the dynamics of when they do work together and also just using them to as because of what happened, more and more people are starting to figure out, oh, Clark is Superman,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing it from the boys' perspectives, especially whenever they have the episode where whatever they do, um, you know, juxtapose it with Clark's teenage years and how and also just and also growing into an adult as far as keeping the secret and why they're keeping a secret and all those kind of things and Jordan basically like again to your point about the brothers working together just sharing with Candace like what happened because he learned from his like the lessons he learned keeping the secret from Sarah for so long um
Yeah.
and
But
so yes,
the
yeah.
lessons, but also just the like you told Chrissy, and then later when her dad. So
Hmm.
initially I thought she told her dad.
Hmm.
And then shortly after, I was also like, I don't think they're on talking terms. So I bet it was Lex.
Yeah.
Because Lex is the one who ends up shooting. Because that's the other thing that happens over the course of these 4 episodes is not only does the town, rightfully so, start
Yeah.
putting pieces together that were right in front of them and connecting the dots, and then it's Clark's decision to finally be like, nope, I'm going to stop this bullet, rip off my regular outfit, and show you that I'm in the suit.
Hmm.
Can't deny. Now, could he have said, well, I I like to pretend. Yeah. So you have that great moment, but I
Yeah,
just
that was, yeah, that moment was spoiled, but for me, but it's like,
but
again, just
it
being,
spoil everyone.
yeah, but that's one of the, risk of like when you delay watching something, but the seeing how it all transpired and how it all went down, it still hit the right notes, because seeing how it built up over the course of the prior episodes, it really nailed it, especially like, even when, as Lex figured it, Lex is known about it, but then, calling Clark out, and whenever, the people of Smallville, like, really rallying around the Kents, when Lex was trying to take over the town, and then, Clark, you know, Lex turning on the red lights so that Clark would be powerless, and they had a big brawl in the street. Um, you know, whenever we do get that moment of him just owning it, that yes, I am Superman, and letting the world know it, it still hit the right emotional punch for me, as far as like, oh, that was a cool moment, just, because what I think it was just how it was shot, the scene was shot with seeing everything in his perspective, when the bullet was coming his way, and just, the facial, the nonverbal acting that Tyler Hoechlin did in that moment, I think was what made that scene work so well.
Right. So it was the episode before with the red lights.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
episode
and the
6. Yeah.
brawl in the street, which I will admit I kind of fell asleep during. It's cool, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not here for this. I think that the show did Tyler Hoechlin dirty, because it's not until now that I realized just how freaking funny he is.
Hmm.
Because in the episode 7, A Regular Guy, I'm kind of getting tired of these flashbacks, because every episode seems to have a set. But when he was talking about bunting,
Yeah.
I was just like, you're so freaking funny and so freaking charming. Where has this been?
I think it's been there. I think it's been
It,
there.
I feel like it has, but
Yeah. But
I
you're
mean,
right. They could have used it
season
more.
1 and 2, maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely, I don't remember it from season 3.
No.
Season 3, I know that they won some awards because of the Lois cancer storyline,
Mhm.
and I can appreciate that. But there's a lot of mess in season 3 where it's just, and it starts in season 2, but the convolution of what happens. But anyway,
Yeah.
um,
It is heavier. You're all right. I mean, there are those moments of levity are not as great, um in season 3, just because it was this heavy, it was overall a heavier storyline with Lois's cancer, the whole Bruno Mannheim,
well, I
building the Lex. Yeah.
I think, I mean, the show is Superman and Lois for a purposeful reason.
Mhm.
And I feel like predominantly he's been playing Superman, which
Mhm.
is stoic, not as charming and charismatic as nerdy Clark Kent is.
Mhm.
And I mean, let's call a spade a spade. There's a reason why Clark Kent was able to woo Lois Lane.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he may be dorky, but he can't be too dorky. He has to be dorky charming.
Yeah.
So so I feel like now that we're on this path of him becoming human, essentially for all intents and purposes,
Mhm.
we're seeing the evolution from Superman to Clark Kent,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I mean threw me, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't, okay, I see where you're going with this. Okay, all right, that's fun. What about the boys though? Because I don't know how they're gonna do now that everyone knows who they are, and that's, I don't know. I mean, we all know what happens to child actors, so. Um, I just so I can appreciate, I think that's why it's not up until now that I'm really seeing his charisma shine specifically in this role.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And then also just his interactions with Jimmy in that episode too. We finally do get Jimmy Olsen in Superman and Lois, and just there, to your point about the charm and the cute dorkiness, him trying to throw Jimmy off whenever Jimmy's like, well, deducing that Clark is Superman, and those moments were pretty funny too, as far as just being able to show Tyler Hoechlin's comedic chops there.
Yeah, and who else I've just been like, I've forgotten about you, who makes an appearance of, and who we see is Gordon Godfrey,
Yes.
aka Tom Cavanaugh. I did not know about this. I did not know that this was going to be a thing. And so when we started, I was like, I know that voice. I know that. And it's so funny because all those years with him on The Flash, it's just Tom Cavanaugh being Tom Cavanaugh. And the thought did come in my mind. I was just like, man, if you were never on The Flash, you'd probably be playing Lex Luthor right now.
Yep. Yeah, I like the Gordon Godfrey character. It's so topical for one, just to have. And I know it's a character from the comics as well, but the way they put their spin on it, and him being the talk show host, and again, how how they invite Lois and to the show, and I really like the whole way that whole sequence went down, because Lex thought he was like, who's going to use Godfrey to be home cooking, and he was just going to be able to disgrace Lois, and really, because that was the other thing too with this show. It's like, to your point about the vendetta and the villain's motivations, Lex's motivations are to ruin Lois even more, because of what, than even calling out to the world that Clark is Superman. I mean, he just wants to destroy Lois.
Yeah.
And so,
because
which I think
who his vendetta is against.
Yeah. And so whenever he thinks he has the upper hand in there, and then when Lois just, drops the Elizabeth card, I was just like, that whole interplay between the two, I mean, all season pretty much, between Bitsy Tulloch and Michael Cudlitz, who plays Lex. I mean, they play well, act so well off of each other, and whenever she pulls out that ace card, and then of course, the only reason why things go sideways in that interview is because Milton, aka Brainiac, was able to get John Henry's suit. She had him.
Yeah, of course, but it's not the series finale, so they have to. This is all foreplay. This is foreplay. We're gonna get.
Foreplay? Yep.
We're gonna get the penultimate episode and talk about both the penultimate episode and the series finale next week. But yeah, that was the big setup point. Is that John Henry, on the every other episode that he can appear on, manages to get his suit hijacked, which also there was a casual mention John Henry and Lana have been in a relationship this whole time. Now can they be on the screen together? I don't know. I have to really see it.
We'll see. We'll find out next week when we talk about it. But another thing too, as I brought up the red lights and stuff, with Lois and Lex and the Godfrey scene, again, when Clark loses it, and again Lex was just trying to, that was the one moment where I did feel like, okay, he's trying to undermine Superman, but again, Lois just, I see red lights, and I see I'll drop the Elizabeth card to make you lose your shit.
Yeah, you're gonna come after my family, and try to use them to paint me in a bad light. I can do the same to you. They are both I really can appreciate how throughout this entire show, arguably,
Mm.
they have managed to really make a lot of the primary villains and antagonists of Superman really at the end of the day being against Lois.
Mm-hmm.
And so and why I think that should be just applauded to an extent is because it makes her a damsel in distress, but she's not tied to the train tracks.
No.
She also isn't just willy-nilly getting herself in these situations. No, there's motivation, there's to tell the truth, to do what's right. Like you can see how she got on the wrong side of things, but you can also see like the lines that she's unwilling to cross to get them. So I think like you need her to be a damsel, but it's the 21st century. She can't be tied on the train tracks. So
right.
Yeah.
And she has just as much agency and sometimes much pushback as Clark.
Oh,
So,
most often even more. I mean, like you ask Jordan and Jonathan who runs that house, it's Lois.
Yep.
Like there's always one parent. It's like who makes the decisions here, people? Okay, which one?
Yeah, we all know who's the boss.
Make the decisions together. Do you?
Yep.
Do you? We'll see. Oh man. All right. Well, that is a wrap on that leg of Superman and Lois, and we are headed back to Dune. Okay. I have so many freaking notes, but I'm just gonna start with the second episode, Two Wills. And the IMDb plot line is for this episode is after receiving word about events on Suglakadas. I don't know how to pronounce it. Viola brings Theodosia to the Imperial House to help manage the situation. Meanwhile, Desmond makes a confession to Emperor Corino. Tula reluctantly enlists Lila for a vital mission and distress swirls around Kieran Atreides, the sword master of House Corino. So I think of the two episodes, this is the better episode. And I do. I like a lot of what happens in the third episode, but I think this is a better episode because A, we get Desmond Hart. We don't see him at all in the third episode.
No.
And he has managed to kill a kid. And something that I thought was very cool and kind of freaky in a weird way is the whole suspension prison that they put him in. Like, and did you notice like they suspend him in the middle of the air and they turn off all the lights.
Yeah.
So talk about the mind games. I mean, those poor prisoners.
Yeah.
I mean, Desmond's all hopped up on spice and everything, so who cares? But still, when they showed that, I was like, oh, wow, that's one way to hold someone hostage. Wow.
Yeah.
But
that's a good point. I didn't think about that with the suspension prison, but that's a very good point. I mean, as far as so many ways to like mess with a prisoner's head, by just the sensory deprivation like that, and probably suspended in the air like that probably had this feeling of like falling.
Exactly. Like your feet aren't on the ground. There's nothing stable. Like all of your senses are kind of just hanging, and so depending on how long you're in that state, it is a way of torture for sure. But despite all of that, they unsuspend him so many times throughout this episode. Because he gets unsuspended because Viola comes to town and wants to have a chat.
Yeah.
And I mean, we see them on screen together maybe like once or twice in this episode, but both times these actors are just eating off of each other
Yeah,
very well.
yeah,
And you can see that they are like the adversarial rivalry between them is very good. And I can appreciate, and I like how at the end Violet tries to use that card, like her go-to, the
yep,
voice,
yep.
and it has no effect. And he kind of, if I'm not mistaken, he kind of acts at first, and
He
then it's,
does.
oh no, 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 your tricks don't work on me.
Yep, yep.
Um, and the voice, I remember hearing it a few times during
Hmm.
the movies, but it never I swear they did something different, because this voice, anytime it happens, it always catches me off guard, and I'm always like, whoa. Calm
Maybe,
down.
given that we learned, in the third episode that's it. I guess she was evolved to that point where
Yeah.
she could do it. Maybe because this is set 10,000 years earlier, it's more raw. But so by the time when we see it in the movies, I agree, because I haven't watched part two yet, but I do remember in part one that there is something different about it. I guess it's more polished because it's over the years they've been able to learn, other people have either evolved or learn how to do it, and so it's probably more practiced than it is now.
Yeah, yeah. But and it's also what I thought was interesting between with this whole Desmond and the interviews and the prisoner thing was the politics.
Hmm.
Um, because the Empress, I
Yeah.
mean, talk about someone who's just like, we don't need no truth sayer. I can work my man.
Yep.
I can get this all figured out.
For
And
a while, I thought she was actually. I was like, is she part of the sisterhood? Because,
right, right.
yeah,
There's part of me is like, okay, so did you try to be a part of the sisterhood, and then did they kick you out? Did they
yeah,
not want you, or there has to be something, because there's been a lot of tension. But we also know you worked with them to secure your current spot.
mm-hmm,
So what's the dynamic here?
yeah, yeah,
Um, I'm sure there's some kind of history, but like with her coming and even having a private conversation with Desmond,
yeah.
and I just have to say, like, Mark Strong, you're doing great. However, the writers are not helping your character, because you look way weak. You
That's
just,
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the intention, but even more so, it just like super feckless. Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And I mean the who's the guy who lost his son, Duke Righteous.
yeah.
He I You can see how the it's almost like you can see it from the Empress's eyes,
Mm,
because like you have a duke and an emperor who have come to depend on these truthsayers to the point where without them, they have no idea how to make rational decisions, how to actually be an effective leader, if
mm-hmm,
you say. And it's just, and also how to navigate grief while at the same time trying to resecure power.
yeah,
So it's just the crutch. It's really a good display of how, yeah, the machine war is over long time ago, yet there are other controllers in place. And
yeah,
so they're doing a good, I think why I find Desmond to be a very effective character in this whole show so far is because he says some really philosophical things,
mm-hmm,
and then you see it.
yeah,
Some of these other characters, they say some real philosophical things that you don't really see. or it's harder to see play out that way, I'm finding. So I want to point that out about this episode, that I think the politics mainly because it was all in one place. You had a lot of different characters, a lot of different motivations going on, and that's where it reminded me a lot of aspects of Game of Thrones, House of Dragon that I really appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I completely agree. I think the politics of it of this episode really do make a difference with the enjoyment factor. I will say, and I messaged you this the other night. I still don't know how I feel about this series. I mean, I think, as you noted, there are moments that really just like stand out in the ones that you've already shared, or the ones that stand out to me in the second episode. And also, and I know we'll get to Tula and Lila and what was going on back at the on Wallach Nine. But the other, but for every moment they do those really strong things, I do have to like point out, if the one thing that the trend that I'm seeing in this show, that it is, if you're hooking up with someone, then bad shit happens. Because the three times, the not to get into the third episode, but the three times we've seen someone, people have sex, then in the second episode, she gets the Duke's daughter, gets Constantine, hopped up on spice, and to your point though, even though on one hand it is kind of gratuitous, but it does get into the politics of it, because he uses the information that he gets from Constantine to like, play his hand, to play his hand on Corino, because again, Corino's effectless. So, so there are, so it does get to the larger politics of the show. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think whenever the show gets into the politics, it does get interesting. But and the pacing of the second episode was a lot better than the first episode for sure, which helped.
Yeah, we're in it now. And I mean, to go, because you brought up you haven't watched Dune 2 yet.
Right.
And I made a note, and so listeners who have seen both part 1 and part 2 of Dune can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't occur in the first movie, but it occurs in part 2, where Paul's mom goes through the agony. I know you see the agony play out with a few different characters, but I'm not going to go into spoilers or talk about that. But and that's the first time. And again, I feel like the show does it better. I got very confused as to what was going on and the flashes and everything and what was happening. But when Paul's mom goes through it. But in this with Lila, it was very, again, creepy. Like they're leaning really into the witches.
Yeah. Like, well, it's the religious aspect that Herbert really was focusing on. Yeah,
exactly. And like there was that horror element when she's in there, and the shadows and the black and Doretta coming out and saying, "Hearkening, you stole my future. Now I'm taking your hope." I was like, that's a badass line. Very nice. Very nice. And then we hear the key to the reckoning is one born twice, once in blood and once in spice. Second episode, hearing that line, I'm like, of course it's Desmond. But we'll talk about the third episode, because there's another theory I'm working on. So that whole sequence is because of they leaned into horror so much with it. It did feel like an agony. And then you're just like, well, she's trapped in there. And then they show her in the next episode, she's still trapped in there because Tula won't pull the plug.
Yeah.
Like, that is
Yeah.
just mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus. Oh my God. I mean, we started at the beginning talking about the whole suspension thing, and then now
Mhm.
you're sending sisters to take the agony only to leave them in there if they fail.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Yeah. But thinking to the point about the agony in the second episode with Tula and Lila, Tula, having Lila, and the other thing too, they really set up, the maternal nature of Tula, and and the other students in the one student who's always like questioning things. It reminds me a lot of Aya,
Mhm.
uh, in the sense that uh, questioning authority, questioning the assumptions that have been made in Vaya's case about the Atreides, with their ancestor and the Atreides, but in this kid, questioning Lila, can't you see they're using you to, like, for their own power ends,
Mhm.
and you're not ready for this, but then Tula's like, when whatever she does it in the second episode, and it carries forward in the third too, with some of the motivations, like, why is Tula doing this? Is it because is she doing it to help her sister, or is it also her own way of trying to make the Harkonnen name, um, you know, redeem that their family name because of the in their view, the lie that's been told about them being cowards and everything since the machine war. So I thought so I thought that was another good through line between the two episodes, especially when
Yeah.
we get to the third with the backstory. But Tula, again in the second episode, with her, uh, with Vaya basically leaving her there to run things. It was kind of like, okay, I will do it because I got to go to Salua Secundus because of this Desmond Hart character, figure out
Yeah.
what happened to Kasha. But just don't fuck things up while I'm gone.
Yeah. Their sister dynamic, you see, the current state of it,
Yeah.
and the definitely, like, what I mean, not only is she the Reverend Mother, but
Hmm.
Violet's also the older sister.
Hmm.
And you really understand their relationship more in the third episode, with the flashbacks.
Yeah.
But they have to use in the second episode, show you like the current state and make sure it's very clear.
Hmm.
Also, just how Tool is a part of the sisterhood, but it is also in a very unique position where she's like second in command, yet the younger sister has to live up to the older sister expectations, and
Hmm.
also everyone has doubts. So she has her own doubts, like she's not her sister, and so there's a whole identity thing, and
Yeah.
and then her relationship with Leela, who's not her kid.
No.
But in both sisters in this episode essentially are find themselves in positions of, because by the end of it, Tula Viola gets kicked out of the great house, of
Hmm.
that birth house. Like, her services are no longer
Yep.
needed. They got Desmond Hart. Goodbye.
Yep.
And so they're now grappling for power. Then Tula, on the other hand, in Weckler 9, because the Agony, Doretta gets some form of revenge on them
Hmm.
and traps Leela in there. You have her suddenly like, well, I did this at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now how do I undo this?
Hmm.
And that's why she keeps her in agony for days on end.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump to it because I know we're going to talk about the flashbacks, but I did not see it coming that like they finally pull the plug, or what we think is pull the plug. And then we go on this long winded staircase down into the cabin. As soon as I knew where she was, I'm like, oh, you're keeping her alive. But not only alive, but also just filling her with as much spice as she can. Because it has rejuvenation qualities and could bring her back to life and everything. And that's why I think that what they could be doing is making you think it's Desmond Hart who is born of spice, like no, like born twice. But now I'm like, what if it's Lila?
It could be, yeah.
Because they're clearly setting up two characters who it could be. And both of them, more so Lila now, it was their decisions that led to that creation. And I feel like Tula said in the first episode, what if we're the cause of it?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Our decisions are the very cause of the reckoning, which goes into that whole thing about how we learn in this episode, in the third episode, that to this day, arguably, it's sisterhood above all, but for Viola, it's Harkonnen above all.
Yeah.
To a fault, and to the point where I'm like, I don't get it. Harkonnen above all, yet you clearly hate your family. Your family clearly hates you. So why? Why are you so? Like, I don't really understand this. Maybe we're gonna learn about it in the fourth episode a bit more. But a part of me was like, okay, I get it, but I also don't get it because I don't understand your loyalty to your family who clearly hates you.
Yeah, it is a very, and that's my, I guess that's where I was with the third episode. I was left me like, it provided some depth to like, it filled in like why Vala and Tula are doing what they're doing. But at the same time, I was just like, okay, at the dinner table there with episode 3, they were all, after they, we learn more about the Harkonnens. Basically they're just like, because of the Atreides, spreading the word that, it was their ancestor who was a coward, blah, blah, blah. They're stuck on this like backwater Lankavel. Hoth, frozen planet being basically, whale hunt, basically whale suppliers for the Imperium, for meat. And when the rest of the family just were like, yeah, well, we're, this is our lot. And she's like, no, why, we need to write our names, but the rest of them are like, no. So you're right. I mean, maybe we'll get some more explanation for why clearing, getting their place. And I guess
because it's not just about revenge for what happens with Griffin.
No,
because that's played out in this episode.
I think,
it's even before that where Viola is very adamant that they should not be in this position. There was a lie, which the writers are very much gatekeeping this lie. We still we haven't really received any information about the exact events, what was said, what transpired between the Harkonnens and the Atreides, like years prior, that resulted in this situation. We're just told it was a lie from Viola's perspective.
Yeah. Something happened during the Machine Wars. Yeah. And I guess her motivations are power. Because some of the things, so I think that, I mean, so we do know some of it is not just vengeance. Whereas I think this episode, and to my earlier point, as far as like what are Tula's motivations, maybe was it vengeance because of Griffin's death due to the Atreides, or was it or whenever she took on this mission to infiltrate the family, and it ended up killing them
But
all except for
Tula, we're
one.
talking about Tula now?
Yeah, I'm talking about Tula.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Tula's
Tula's motivation was revenge, not just for Griffin's death, but also to get back into good graces with Phyla.
yeah. That was gonna be my next point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's all of those, and I really appreciated seeing that it was Tula. I didn't see it coming because I mean I did kind of like as soon as she was like, I'm a Harkonnen,
Mhm.
but I did, they played it where I didn't piece together that he was in Atreides.
Yeah, they did a great job of hiding that. They really did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
thought I knew something was off,
Mhm.
and I was like, please, I don't want to see them rape her because
Yeah,
she was
that's
like with a bunch of men. There was a lot of weird things happening.
yeah. See, that's
And
where I thought they were going to go too. I thought something
yeah,
bad was going to happen to her, but it didn't cross my mind. Oh yeah, because the Atreides.
yeah, that
So,
she was doing a covert op mission to get her revenge. She was playing the long game, just being herself. And I like how she does it, she accomplishes it. Yet if it was Viola, the kid wouldn't have lived.
no, yeah,
But because it was Tula, the kid did live.
yeah. The kid lived, and also I think she did. I mean, I think she actually did love his name Otto.
Ori. It's not
Ori.
Otto.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I'm thinking Otto. I'm thinking House of Dragon.
yeah.
Ori. Yeah. Ori. Yeah. I think she did. I mean, because but at the same time, it was, but family above all. So
You're
she had to
right.
do what she had to do.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that scene, shout out to both actors because the
Yeah,
whole night after scene was played very well
it was.
by both of them because for a moment I can appreciate how he took it in
Hmm.
and then was just like, well, that's their problem, not
Yeah,
ours.
yeah,
And you could see even with her and how she responds, she's like, shit, maybe I should have told you before I killed everybody. I don't know. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, like, that's nice. But if it had been your brother, would you have still have been able to get over it? I think
yeah,
that's how she was able to be like, I love you
yeah,
and you're saying all the right things. But if roles were reversed,
yeah,
you would still follow through with this. Like
yep,
there's
yeah,
no going back. And it was heartbreaking.
it was very
And
much so.
really executed well because I didn't, like I said, I was not sitting there like he's an Atreides. I mean, I'm more focused on like something we didn't mention in the previous episode, but the fact that the Atreides swordsman is also working with the
Rebellion.
revolt, the
Yeah,
rebellion.
yeah, yep,
This whole other situation going on. Oh my God.
yeah.
Um, but I think as much as I liked those flashbacks with Tula, I'm not really digging young Viola.
Yeah.
She's just so stereotypical for
Hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to be able to like you. And so far I can't. And I was thinking about this, Will. Stay with me now.
Yeah.
So thinking about how we just wrapped up a few weeks ago two shows where the protagonists were villains.
Hmm.
Both shows very different, both
Hmm.
shows executed very well, and spin-offs as well.
Yep.
Very similar to this whole Dune prophecy where we got a prequel going and it's around like our protagonists, quote unquote, are the Harkonnens, who
Hmm.
are technically the bad guys in
Hmm.
Dune. The difference is, and where I think this show is struggling the most, Viola is not likable.
Yep, I agree.
And I say that not just because she's a villain, but we have yet to see a side to her where we can give empathy
Hmm.
and where we're like, okay, there's a chance here.
Yeah,
But it's just it's and therefore she's not even necessarily a protagonist, she's just a character. And so far they've managed to like show us some a handful of some three like interesting characters, but yet we still don't have our like a solid antagonist, protagonist. I mean, we have adversaries. It's much more of an ensemble, so you get a little bit lost, and it's like, well, who am I rooting for here?
yeah,
Like, and why am I rooting for them? I mean, for a moment, I thought we were gonna get some because I thought for a moment we were gonna stick like this whole episode was gonna be flashback and would be about her and her brother trying to get vengeance, and then something happens, but we didn't.
yeah,
They jumped cut and he was
yeah,
dead.
yeah, yeah. I could, you know, what I said earlier, I was like, maybe I don't know how I feel about this series, and I think you've articulated what I could not articulate, which is that yeah, I just don't. The scenes with like Tula, I was really locked in, engaged, you know, really fascinated by this character. With Aya, I was just like, yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm just not rocking with her, and it's nothing against it's not the actress that playing her.
No,
I mean, both
no.
Emily Watson and the young lady who played the young Via. I mean, they both are doing. It's just how the character's written,
Yeah.
and and even like whenever she and Raquella uh, were whatever we do get a little bit more like
Yep.
bigger picture as far as like Raquella is really trying to get the motivations of why she's using the forbidden machinery and to create better men or better rulers I should say for the Imperium versus Vaya's motivations where she's just like the truth people suck.
Yeah.
So you can breed them as best you want, but at the end of the day people suck. I'm sort of like, yeah, okay, and
Yeah. Right, right. It's just like, and I
yeah,
mean, we don't even have like she clearly doesn't have good relationships with her parents. So, I mean, honestly, the something that could and is keeping Viola somewhat afloat is the sisterhood with
yeah,
between her and her sister.
yeah, yeah,
And because Tula is likable
yeah.
and complex.
Hmm.
So and you see a glimmer of hope in like okay, now you just have to use your voice on Viola.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, because
yeah.
Viola's not
And
helping here.
yeah, I think that's what it is. I think you just nailed it. I mean, Tula is very complex. Viola just seems like just a blunt instrument. Just if I don't get my way, I'm just going to use the voice.
Right,
If
right.
I can't, yeah,
She's a stubborn child
yeah,
who something happened and she can't let it go. And another thing that is working against her is the viewers have yet to be shown or really understand this vendetta
hmm,
because it's it's the third episode. We don't have that many episodes to go,
yeah,
and yet we still don't really understand why it is so important for her to do what she's doing.
hmm,
Um, and I think it gets more confusing now that we understand that like for her it's still a little bit Harkonnen above all, more so than even the sisterhood above all. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm not I'm not necessarily thinking about the show much after watching the episodes.
yeah,
Um, I haven't been blown away necessarily by anything, but I also think that the show is doing a better job than the movies did in
Mm,
terms of just the understanding of this world
mm,
and really creating a world and a universe to
yeah,
explore. So, and I can appreciate most of the writing. So like it's consistent. I'm not bored, but
yeah,
I'm also not like on the edge of my seat.
yeah. It's not like I gotta turn on HBO Max at 9 o'clock. So whereas House of the Dragon, I'm like, all right, y'all, leave me alone.
Right. Right.
Or even Penguin, I'm like, leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Agatha, I'm like, by the time, yeah. And so, yeah, and I think that's, I mean, it's a good show. But you're right. I mean, after I watch it, it really wasn't until tonight, whenever we've had our conversation about it. It's like, oh, there's things in here that I did like, and then actually, I think, through our conversation tonight, I think it helped me put my finger on what's missing for me, and why after each episode, I'm just kind of left, okay.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
uh, yeah,
And viewers, please let us know how you are feeling about this show, and if you picked up on anything that we did not touch on, or feel like something else is missing that we did not notice. Love to hear your thoughts. We're gonna see it to the end. I mean, we've watched dumber things.
no, it's even though it's only 6 episodes, we made it halfway through.
Yep.
I always have the 3 episode rule, and usually at this, I don't want to bail because there's enough there that I'm curious to see how this all unfolds, especially given to our discussion about what's Vaya's motivations, especially knowing that in episode 2, it's it was very important for them to keep this. She learned about the genetic machine that's in the basement of the temple or whatever, and clearly Tula knows about it now. So I want to see if like to your point, like is Lila going to be the one that's twice born because
Yeah.
or because she's not not going through the sandworm to get these the potential powers or whatever, but clearly something's going to happen to her after she comes out of the agony. So
Yeah. All right. On that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
yes, you can find me on the various social media channels at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd, on Blue Sky at Scene and Nerd. That's two capitals N's. Dot Besky BSK.
Yeah, blue sky.social. Yeah. I think that's how you're supposed to do the Blue Sky handles these days.
Follow us on Instagram and Threads at scene_ed_nerd, and visit our website www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, geek out. You're welcome.